Hello, today we're going to discuss about the routing concepts. So before diving into this one, you need to have a basic understanding um, about the networks what in the previous course. So today we're going to discuss more of about the routers and their basic configuration. So we'll discuss about what the router is, and then we're going to discuss about their how do we configure them, their configuration. So in this course, we're going to see concepts related with directly connected networks and the primary functions of the router and how do we configure them. So we will see their basic configuration, and then we'll also verify their connectivity. So these are the basic concepts that we are going to discuss today. So as you can see here, there are different networks. So those different networks are the three networks. You can see the yellow one at the top. So here you can see this three yellow colors are the local area network. You can see them here on this part. So these three yellows are local area networks. We can call them LANs. And this one, these three, so the other one is the one. So we need to have at least one network usually to connect different networks. So what is the basic purpose of a router is connecting one network, that is connecting one network with another network. So that's their basic purpose. So how do we know that a network is, how do we differentiate between one network and another network? So let us see what that is going to do. So we do know that the IP addresses, so IP addresses are very important for the differentiating who, for example, my name is Muhammad. So my name is Muhammad Abrar. I have a brother who's called Abdul Fattah Abrar. So you can see from here that Muhammad and Abdul Fattah, they are brothers. How do you know? Just by looking at their father's name, usually. So just like this one, networks do know that which members of the PCs are their brothers or their family, which parts of the PCs are not part of their network. So they have a mechanism to differentiate between devices which are part of their network and which are not part of the network. Let's take an example. So if you take this number 192.168.20.21 and 192.168.30.45, just like I gave you the analogy of this between Muhammad and Abdul Fattah being brothers, we can say that by looking at these numbers, we can say these two PCs are in the same network or in different network. For example, if we say that it is the subnet mask is 255 to 55 to 55.0, so this one is saying their networks, just like the father name of Abrar, which the three numbers, so the three bits, the three you can say octets, are going to be used whether they are the same family or different families. So we can see that we're not going to look at the last number, we're going to check between these three values. So they are similar with the first value, they are similar with the second value, but they are not similar with the third value. So you can see that these two PCs are not in the same network. So what? So these two PCs, if we say this is PC1, if you say this is PC1, and if you say this is PC2, these PCs cannot be, they can be connected with the switch, but they cannot communicate with the switch. So for example, if this is a switch, you can connect these two PCs using the switch with these IPs, the IPs that we have already provided, but they're not going to communicate. How? So what is the other option? The other option is we can connect them through their routers. So what is the advantage of a router? The advantage of a router, it can communicate two PCs who are not in the same network. How do we know these two numbers, they are not in the same network? Because we have been given their father name is the first three digits. So this is telling us the first one, the second one, and the third one, they are going to be used as a criteria to differentiate between your brothers. So if they are, for example, if this could have been 30, if this could have been another number, let us say if this could have been 30. So now these two PCs can communicate because only their difference is at the last number. That's possible using this one. So if you are going to connect two different PCs, you need to connect them. If they have different network IP addresses, you need to connect them using what? Using routers. Just put this one in your mind. Another advantage of the router is what? It can determine the best route. What does it mean? So for example, if I want to go from here to Magananya, there are different possibilities. I can go through the Mannaharia, or we can say at the here at the Lambert Mannaharia, or we can go through the Salita Mehrad. We have multiple options to go from here, from our campus or from the institute, or let us say from your area to different areas. There are different possibilities. So how does we select the best route? The best route depends on the security of the path, the shortest, the distance between the source and the destination, and different criteria can be used to determine the best route. So another advantage of a router is it can select the best route. So the best route will enable you to reach to your destination safely and at the fastest rate. So that's another advantage of a router. The third possibility of the router is it can another one which is similar to the previous one is routing traffics. So why the second concept that we have said is what? This one, the second concept, what did we say? We said that the router determines the best route. So determining the best route is so that you can route the traffic. You can send. Routing means sending your message. So when we say traffic, a traffic in this context, it means the message. So the message can be, routing means it's nothing but just sending it through the best path. So it can route your traffic, or it can send your message across different networks. So that's the concept of what routing means. So in order to do that, routers have usually some tables, which we will see it in the future. They have their own routing tables. So routers are more or less similar with the PCs. Why do we say they're more or less PCs? You do know that PCs have CPUs, PCs have operating systems, PCs have memories. These are the three important devices or hardware components that are included in the PCs. Similar to that, routers have these components also. The main difference is the operating system for the router is called an inter-network operating system. Why do we call it an inter-network operating system? Because previously we said that routers communicate one network with another network. So you need to have an inter-networking operating system. So the purpose of this operating system is internetworking, connecting different networks. It's as simple as that. So what are the others? So we have operating system, and also we have storage. What kind of storage do we have? Usually we have the RAM, we have the ROM, and we have the NVRAM. So what is the purpose of these different storage medias? What the purpose of the RAM is, you can store what that you are currently working on. For example, you can see that I am working on this slide currently. In order to read this document with this highlighting options for the future, I need to store it in the permanent storage. Otherwise, if I didn't store this slide with this highlighting options, you cannot see the marks that I've put on this one. So the file that I'm currently working it's usually stored in the RAM. So if you wanted to store it at the permanent basis, you need to save it at the hard disk. If it's on the PC, you need to store it at the NVRAM if it is on the router. So the thing that you are currently working, it is stored on the RAM. If you want to use it on the permanent basis, you want to store it on the NV, or the non-volatile. But the name itself suggests what the meaning of non-volatile. Non-volatile means if the power is off, you'll get the file as it is. What the meaning of volatile? Volatile means if the power is off accidentally by under different circumstances, those files will not be found in the case of a RAM. So that's volatile. So which one does require constant power? It's obvious, the RAM, because you are currently working on it, you didn't save it. So if the power accidentally, if you lose the power, you are not going to get your files at that moment. So another concept is, we will come in detail, routers have different specialized ports, and they have different network interfaces. So when we say ports, these are a mechanism that will enable the router to communicate with other devices. So let me give you some example. We have an example of a console port, which will enable us to configure the router. If you don't have a console port, the router will not be configured. Configuring means we're going to order the router to do some things. Another one is we have interfaces. Where do we need the interfaces for? The interfaces are what? Like the Ethernet interface. What is the purpose of the Ethernet interface? It will enable us to connect it with the switch. So if you have a switch, let us say this is a router. So the router will have some spot connecting port with the with PC, and another connecting port with the switch, and another connecting port with another router. So if you have the switch will be connected here. If you have PC will be connected here. If you have another router will be connected here. So the endpoints that the routers will connect, they are called what? Some of them are called ports, like this, the one which PC is going to connect. Some of them are called interfaces, which is the one you are going to connect with the switch and with the router. So you can see here, so this one, this part is called what? Console port. And the yellow areas that you'll see at here, these two yellow ports, they are called what? Interfaces, where switches will be connected. And you'll have another ports here, interfaces, sorry, which you are going to connect with the routers. So these are the important concepts. So as we have previously said, what is the purpose of random access memory? The random access memory is going to store two things, especially the running configuration file, the one that you are currently working on. But if you want to store that one in the future, that's called startup configuration. So the unsaved version, it's called the running configuration file. The saved version, it's called the startup configuration file. So whenever you configure a router, the configuration that you are working on, it is stored in the running configuration, and when you finally store it into a permanent basis, that's called what? Startup configuration. Usually flashes are used for what purpose? Backup purpose. So we have said that router is, so the router will be responsible to forwarding packets. So if, let us say that if this PC wants to send a message to this PC, so you do know that there are multiple options that the path, the data can go from this PC to this PC. So so that's the purpose of the router. So if the file was destined to this PC, the switch by itself will send it. But we are going to go across different multiple networks. So the message is going to go from here through this one, or either through this path, or it can go from here up to here through different paths. So we have two options. This is where we call it selecting the best route. Either it depends on the speed or different issues. So you can see at least we have from this issue, we have two options to go from the source, which with the source is this one, to the destination, which is this one. So the router is responsible for forwarding packets. So usually in our days, everything is sent from the source to the destination based on packets. So let us say that this message is going to be sent from source to destination. So this message is going to be segmented into different components. So each of them are called packets. So packets will be sent from the source to destination through these networks. So we have said previously there are different types of interfaces. We said there are different types of interfaces. The interfaces to connect to the switch, it's called the Ethernet interface. The interfaces that are used to connect with the router, that's called what? The WAN interfaces. So the interface which you can connect to the router from the local area network, these interfaces, they are called LAN interfaces. And the interfaces that will connect with another router, you can see when you go from here to here and when you go from here to here, these are called the WAN interfaces. So we have the WAN interface and we have also the LAN interface. So you can see here the router have two interfaces. Connecting this way, which is called the WAN interface. The connecting here is called the LAN interface. So we have, it can connect two interfaces, the LAN interface and the WAN interface. You can also see that the network that we have here is different from the network that we have here. That is the purpose of a router. It will connect different networks. So different networks can be connected by the router, but they cannot be connected with the switch. So previously we have said what is the purpose of a router? The router selecting the best path and forwarding packets. So just if, for example, if this individual from here wants to send some message to here, it cannot directly send it. It should send first to the switch. The switch will send it to the PC, so to the router. The router will send it to the second router. The second router will send it. So this kind of issues, they are called what? Forwarding packets. We call them forwarding packets. And also, we can say that there are different types of data link layer encapsulations. So we can call them frame encapsulations. So the way that you send from one network, for example, from this LAN to this network, it is completely different. It is completely different. So the kind of packet that you send it in this network is different from the kind of packet you send it in here. So that we call it encapsulation. So whenever a router receives from one network, that message need to be in appropriate format to send it to the second router. So it is just like the same when you go on car and when you go on plane, there are different kinds of ways that you are going to travel. So the means of transportation is different when you are in the LAN and when you are in the WAN. So you can see that the kind of packet that we send it on the LAN, that's called Ethernet. The kind of packet you send it on the WAN, that's called frame. And also another issue is what we call it, the gateway. So gateways are what? The last exit point to your network. We call them gateways. So you can see here, for this network, you can see for this network, the gateway is this one. So because that is the last interface which will enable us to connect our LAN with another, or with a service provider usually. So we call this device, we call this device what? A gateway. So a gateway is the last exit point for the network. For example, if you take this one, for these devices, their exit network, the last default gateway is this one. So it depends on the network that you are in. So that we call the gateway. So the gateway is, if you don't have a gateway, you cannot use an internet, because the gateways are the last point where it is the way that it will enable you to communicate with another world. So don't forget what default gateway is. So usually, for example, let us go to the steps. So the first step is what? The host sends the packet to the device on the same IP network. Then that packet is going to be sent to the default gateway. The default gateway will send it to an outside world. So this is the mechanism by which a network is going to communicate. So always, whenever you want to send some message to another network, let me emphasize, to another network, you'll use what? The default gateway. So the default gateway is the one who is going to send your message to an outside world. So when you put it here, you'll put the default gateway here. You need to make sure that you are going to configure it. So you do know that IP addresses can be configured on the PCs based on what? Based on statical or dynamic. Both of them will enable us to provide an IP address, but the dynamic approach is the usually recommended approach. Users will not be responsible to provide an IP addresses or issues like that. So you can see here, for example, now let us review our main concept. Where did we connect our switch? Where did we connect our switch? Switches are connected here or here. Where did we connect our PCs for initial configuration, to configure them? Because we'll come to configuration in a couple of minutes. We'll connect them here. We call them the console port. So we will have different colors whenever they are working. So for example, if the console when it's working, you'll see that it's a green. When the USB it's working, so green indicates they are working. And also you can see that what the speed of the port that it's operating. So whenever you have 3 blinks and a pause at the same time, so we call it what? We call it is a 1 GB network, or 1000 megabits per second port switch. So we have said that there are different cables which will enable us to connect between a router and a device. So for initial configuration between a router and a switch, so you need to have this kind of cable. This cable is called what kind of cable? We call it a console cable. So the console cable will enable us to connect with what? To connect the PC with our what? We'll connect the PC with the router. So you can see this, the RJ45 port will be connected to the PC, and this, the console port or the serial port, will be connected to the port. So by connecting these two ports on the PC, in addition to that, you need to have what? This software, some terminal emulation softwares like the PuTTY, the TeraTerm. You need to have this software on your PC. So whenever you want to connect, if you want to configure a router, what do? We need to have what? A console cable. Usually, if it is the usual one is the DB9 serial cable, and if you have the second type cable, if you can have it, that's a good, a privileged approach. So in addition to that, the PC need to have what? This kind of software. You can usually I use PuTTY, Hyperterminal, TeraTerm. They are possible. So after having this cable, you need to install this software on your PC. So you can see here, now we are going to, whenever we want to, so we have said previously what? The PC need to have what? We said what? The PC need to have a cable. What kind of cable? Serial cable. So we're using the serial cable, the DB9 one. You can configure. So this is the router which we are going to configure it. So this is the router we are going to configure it. So in order to configure this router, you need to have you can see that there are different ports. So here, how many networks do we have? So you can see that this is one network, this is another network, this is another network. So we have probably how many networks? 3 networks. 3 networks, they are connected by what? Routers. So we're going to configure them